What is up, Bitcoiners? Coming in live with the very first Bitcoin Magazine happy hour of 2021. We have an awesome panel today, and I'm really excited to kick this one off. We haven't really come together since mid-December, and a lot has happened. What was the Bitcoin price last time we had one of these shows, Brandon?
I'm so glad you asked. The Bitcoin price last time we had this show was 22,000.
Wow. So it's been doing work. We are flirting with 40K at the moment, and this entire week has been pretty freaking crazy. But before we get into this, talking about this week and talking about 2020 and what we expect from the bull run, I want to introduce all of our panelists. So quickly, I'm CK. I am one of the editors at Bitcoin Magazine, and my job is to make sure that this show continues to roll and the drinks keep rolling as well. My co-host, Bran, over here has been with us for some time. Why don't you introduce yourself, Bran?
Hey guys, it's 2021. I'm still Brand BTC, and yeah, I'm here with CK. We're excited for the show. This is it. We're back. You know, we've been gone. I'm excited to be back. We're in a bull market. The price is pumping. People are paying attention. This is great.
Yeah.
Money printer, go burr.
Money printer.
Let's go. Green candles, go up. All right, y'all. Let's introduce this fantastic panel. Let's start off with Colin Olds. How's it going, Colin? Welcome to the show.
What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for having me. I know I was supposed to be on this show like 3 or 4 months ago, and I got my times mixed up because I'm an idiot. And so I'm glad that you were offering to have me back. So thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Time zones are hard, man. I don't blame you, and excited to have you here and excited to have you for the very first show of the year. Let's jump over to BK. Britt Kelly, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm Britt Kelly. You can find me on Twitter, Britt5TsK. And yeah, I work on BTCPay Server with the awesome international team of contributors, and we're doing big things. If you haven't heard of that project, please check it out, BTCPay Server.
No one watching this hasn't heard of BTCPay Server, so
if you haven't.
You're kind of a big deal.
Thanks for what you do, Britt. I know you are an OG member of the BTCPay Server team, and your project has done nothing but grow and do amazing things for Bitcoin, so thank you. Let's move on to Brian Harrington. Brian, welcome back to the show. This is your second time on, right?
Yes, I think so. Cheers, everybody. Happy Thursday. Yeah, my name is Brian, Orange County, California. I love Bitcoin. I love meetups. I love just the grassroots nature of Bitcoin. In 2020, Britt taught me how to code for the first time, and I deployed a BTCPay server, and so I'm pretty thankful for that. And we even got a taco shop here running it, and so I'm definitely pretty proud of that and excited to see circular economy stuff grow this year.
Fantastic. And with that, let's kick into our very first topic. So a lot of us learned a lot about the world, a lot about the institutions around us, a lot about the people around us from 2020. 2020 is difficult as it was. I think it was the year of clarity. A lot of people were saying at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of 2020, the year of clarity. It turned out, I think it clarified a lot about all the bullshit that we are truly living in. I want to jump over to you, Brian. We've had personal conversations many times about kind of what 2020 meant to you and how it changed you. You want to reflect on what 2020, how 2020 has affected you personally?
Yeah. So I've kind of always been involved in politics. Like I did student government when I was in high school and college, and I started working on like little local campaigns here in Orange County after I got out of college. And so I've seen each level. I've seen the city council level, I've seen the county level, I've seen the congressional level, and 2020 changed my perspective of all of that forever, because I saw a lot of people that I used to look up to a lot kind of roll over and tell businesses that they had to close. And I just like really at a really practical level, what happened was business owners were told that it was illegal to take a key to a building that they pay rent for, turn the key, walk inside, and exchange services for money. That's crazy. Like, and we use this word crazy, and I tweeted this word crazy, and it's all over the place. But it's like, it truly is one of those like step back and think about what that means scenarios. And for me, it was even more personal because I had helped these people get elected. I had helped these city council people, like, get the positions that they were in. And so it kind of was weird. In 2020 really presented like a push come to shove situation where it was like, what are you even doing? What was the point? What was the point of doing any of that if you had a real practical example of kind of helping people and you made a personal decision to not to. So in that sense, that really changed me. And that's what made me that on kind of the negative side. And then on the positive side, Bitcoin really took off for me in my head of just realizing all the tools are available to use Bitcoin in so many different capacities of your life. Like, and this whole number go up and payments go round thing is not, those are not competing understandings. And so I think this whole like exit mentality really got solidified for me in, the positive side, the negative side and the positive side.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, I know that for you, like, you've kind of stepped away from politics because of it. And for me, like, thank God for Bitcoin, so I'm not heads deep in politics.
Yeah.
Britt, I see you nodding. What's your 2020 retrospective? If you were to look back and, what were like kind of like the big things that stand out to you?
Well, from a BTCPay perspective, I don't want to say it's the I told you so, but we're big on payment censorship, So it's kind of one of those things I feel like we're, like, to us, like, we feel like it's inevitable. It's kind of the end game is this whole like payment censorship thing. And that's come up a ton in 2020. It's like, oh, this organization tried to use GoFundMe, their account got shut down. This organization's crowdfunding on Facebook, their account got shut down. And it's just like, that's what happens when you're trusting someone as the intermediary. So it's definitely been like a year of clarity for sure, but it is also a little bit like, it's kind of sad to say that there's vindication in something like that happening, but like at the same time, it's like a lot of us saw the writing on the wall. So pretty much all Bitcoiners, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like of any individual group of people on Earth, Bitcoiners may have been one of the most prepared groups to handle 2020. Colin, let's jump to you. What's your 2020 retrospective?
I think the lesson has been, just to piggyback on Brian and Britt, is to be like water. You're probably not going to have much luck changing things politically. You just have to build escape hatches and go around them. And that's why I'm really excited to have Katie come on, because she is all about finding ways just to opt out of the system that you're living in and find a better one. And I really looked at this year and thought, I'm a Bitcoin accelerationist. Before Bitcoin, I would have been against all the stimulus, and I would have been against all the checks. And now I'm like, print it, do it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to stop it. So just the faster we get this over with, the better. Whoever's worse for the dog. I'm not pro-Trump or pro-Biden. I didn't vote. I wouldn't vote. But if I did vote, I'd vote for whoever is worse for the dollar. Whoever's going to print more. That's who I want. And I want more of that. And I want them to print more. And I hope Biden burrs like no man has burred before, because it's just going to be good for Bitcoin. And that is our escape hatch. And I think Chris DeRose said it best. He said, knowledge is power. Encourage their ignorance. So whenever these institutions start coming after Bitcoin and they have no idea how to define it, like what was the term they used? Self-hosted wallet. Yeah, just let them be idiots, and you'll win in the end, because knowledge is power and they're ignorant. So be like water, I think, was the lesson of 2020. Just don't ask for permission, build bridges around the regulation. That's what Bitcoin is based on. It's regulatory arbitrage, pure and simple.
Totally. I totally agree. And, to your point, I feel like my big, first off, no one used the pun hindsight is 2020, so I'll be the one to say it. But, the fact that like money printer go burr, just like as a meme, I've said this before, like hit mainstream. Every single human being living in America understood money printer go burr. And that was like Bitcoin's one of the main arguments for it from the get-go, and it was like never more crystally, conveyed to the masses than it was in 2020. So I think for like that in and of itself is, it's pretty crazy. It's like surreal to have
that's
friends.
the power of the memes of production. It really is.
You got to seize the memes of production. Yeah,
you do. They memes cater to the lowest common denominator. It's a message that anyone can understand. And
Yes.
I think, will Bitcoin be the first to ride to the top through memeing alone? Bitcoiners are master memers. So, I'm very, very bullish on the memes of production takeover that Bitcoin has achieved this year.
I love that.
I think
Memes
it's
of
just
production.
going even further.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah, wait. So, like, it sounds like you have been thinking about this concept of memes of production, Colin. Why don't you kind of educate the audience and your fellow panelists on this concept a little more?
Well, the memes of production is actually a meme itself that goes all the way back to the Briar Patch, which of course was kind of the side chat for Bitcoin Uncensored, which again, is a DeRose property. Chris
Very
DeRose,
OG.
you haven't heard of him. Very OG, and I think he was sort of. I think you could think of Chris as maybe like the court jester of Bitcoin. He's an OG Bitcoiner, but like all the Bitcoiners kind of hate him because he's the guy that's pointing out how ridiculous all the Bitcoiners are at times. But you need that voice in Bitcoin to bring people back down to earth. But memes were very popular in this chat, and he talked a lot about seizing the memes of production, and the idea of seizing the memes of production is basically whatever sin that someone is trying to put on you, be it you want to kill the world with Bitcoin, or you're an evil Bitcoin or whatever, just accept the frame and then make that the new ethic. So the idea is basically you just make the bad thing that they're calling you a good thing, assume it's a good thing, and then move forward in the conversation as if the other person is the bad thing. I think Goldstein really takes this to a new level. He has a great talk on this from BitBlock Bloom of 2019, I think. So you should go check that out.
That reminds me of something that like Cernovich says this a lot. He talks about agree and amplify. Like, so if someone just says something to you, just agree and then take it to the just such weird extreme. I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, I agree. And then just take it to such a weird extreme.
Yeah. I mean, that's really been my modus operandi this year. It's been really strange living in California, and I'm kind of I don't really consider myself conservative, but I'm probably one of the most conservative people that a lot of people here know. And when Trump is talking about let's do $2,000 checks, or whoever, they just want to send out checks to everyone, you go, yeah, I'm all for that. And they're like, wait, why are you for that? Because it pumps Bitcoin, it's good for me. And then they're all of a sudden like, wait, if he's for it, maybe I shouldn't be for it.
Well, I mean, as a Bitcoiner, as someone who's like witnessed businesses being forced to be shut down, if a state is going to shut down all the businesses and say you can't put your key in the door hole and accept money for services, then they should pay you. Like, it's not fair to say that it's illegal to do your business and to earn money and then say, hey, sorry, we're also not going to give you this fiat that we can just create. Like, that's actually fucked up. Like, that's
totally.
There's no ethics there. You're not helping anyone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, 2020, and this is like another 2020 is hindsight's 2020 is this was really like the first big step of like the quote unquote nanny state, like stepping in. It's like, instead of letting people make their own decisions and trying to get people to, maybe influence them to do the right decision, but like let them, lead them to their own devices. This was like, no, like, I don't care if you're social distancing or wearing a mask or all that kind of stuff. You got to stay home. Like, you're not even allowed to leave your house. And, that kind of extra step was just kind of surreal. I mean, it was surreal because, I'm an optimist. I'm a humanist. I'm, put the labels on, right? But I believe that if you give people the right information and you let them understand the risks without all the politics, without all the, nuance that people want to try and add in order to sway people to their opinions, people will generally make the right decision for themselves. And it was crazy to see, it flip on its head and change to, we're going to tell you what to do and you got to obey us, or else, if this doesn't work, it's all your fault. And then it never worked, in the first place. So it was surreal. 2020 was ridiculous in that regard.
Britt, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have like a little bit of, I kind of wonder though if some businesses, like, if just the way that the economy was going, that there was so much inflation that a lot of businesses really were actually kind of like malinvestments, that I almost wonder if like some businesses are actually kind of happy for it to happen. And like maybe that's why we don't see as much pushback as you might think. Like, to me, I feel like everyone would be up in arms, but I'm not a small business owner, so I don't know. But I feel like we would be hearing more about it. I don't know. Like, I'm surprised. I don't think that PPP or whatever is like really keeping any small businesses afloat. Like, are they changing?
I would say that the way that the government distributes funds is through who knows who and other forms of like regulatory, established knowledge and, kind of like pre-knowledge. So all the people that would be the squeaky wheels, all the people who would know how to yell at the politicians and get upset in some sort of like effective way have gotten their money and they've gotten paid extremely well. Everyone else that doesn't have lawyers, doesn't have accountants, doesn't understand how to navigate the regulatory landscape, they're the ones who are shut out. And really, they're the ones who have the least voice and probably are the most powerless, the ones that the government is supposed to protect. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just think that maybe they're just powerless, or they feel powerless, or they're scared. Like there's a lot of different factors that are kind of going into this. And I'm in California. I know Colin's also in California. People in California are legitimately fearful. Brian's in California. Like, people are legitimately fearful. Like, I was going on a hike in the middle of nature. No one is around. I may have seen a total of 8 people. And more than half of those people were hiking with masks on, which is like, who are you? Like, are you scared of the tree next to you? Are you going to get COVID from that? Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. There's a lot at play.
Yeah. I do agree, though, that I agree. I think it's weird that more aren't speaking out. And I think when I heard this term that like small business owners are irrational, and not in like an offensive way, in a truly like irrational, like having a business in general in just normal times is really weird. Like the amount of rules already, even pre-COVID, are all just giant things. Like if you scroll just like shop small biz websites and like little businesses for sale and stuff, dude, like it's weird. Like I don't understand how half this stuff cash flows at all. And then that's why, because, and then with that, that's why it is a little bit weird to me why it's like, I think Lightning, like undercutting credit cards, should be just such a gigantic story. Like I just see that as such a gigantic story. And I don't exactly, like, small business owners are unique people, definitely.
Yeah, but it's clear why small businesses aren't accepting Lightning transactions, right? I mean, there's a huge technical hurdle that they have to get over. And then the amount of people, like the demand for just Bitcoin transactions by themselves is pretty low right now. And then on top of that, you're talking about another level for most people to send Lightning transactions. I mean, it's just
totally,
but
that's
clear why they don't want to go through the trouble.
But where's the passion? Like that's what I don't understand, where the passion is. Like from, if you're a pizza shop owner, if you're a taco shop owner, like where's the passion for like wanting to squeeze out the rest of that profit? Like the solutions are available. Like I agree, there's a little bit of hurdles for sure. There's a little bit of hurdles, but it's Bitcoin's been around for 12 years now. Like the story's been told. The story's been told, and even outside of Bitcoin. Okay, fine, not even outside of Bitcoin. Freaking take Venmo straight up. Like I don't just in general anything. It doesn't. Yeah, it's very like go with the flow. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for every business owner, but I think, it's just difficult to justify the time sink. If you're a small pizza shop, I don't know what your margins are. They're probably not that great. They're probably fairly thin, and you're probably working 40, 50, 60 hours a week as it is to, bring home enough to pay your mortgage or whatever, especially in Southern California. And then, this guy comes in, he's like, hey, you should set up Bitcoin transactions. Like, no one's ever asked me to pay with Bitcoin before, or maybe one or two people ever have asked for that.
Yeah.
And then like, I also have to set up this like weird lightning thing. And it's like, you're talking about nodes, but there's 2 different nodes that I have to run. And it's like, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like difficult to
So,
but I know you've done some work trying to communicate that to business owners, so you would know better.
no, totally, and you're nailing it. And I think it more. But what I'm realizing is that I think it more explains, and what Britt was saying, they've already been beat down. Like fiat businesses in general have already been beat down. Like the whole thing where we're talking about the margins are small, and we're like the fact that we all know that running a restaurant is a gigantic hassle already, even pre-COVID, is like pretty crazy. Because I've never owned a small business. So like, why is that such a common thing? Like, shouldn't that just be? And so I started tweeting this out a little bit. That like getting paid in Bitcoin like makes working great again. And so it's like, I think like I'd love, and I think like I fantasize about this sometimes of just like hanging up the knowledge work and just buying a bar. Like, and if the money worked, you could just run a bar and it would actually make money and would actually be like, you could just real kind of brick and mortar entrepreneurship, just kind of like regular.
So I feel like you're kind of getting to something here, right? And that's why I feel like a lot of people are so excited about Strike and other kinds of neobanks, ACH plus the Bitcoin network versus ACH plus other networks, as like a really awesome step to entering into that world. 2020 also really brought to us the next step of Bitcoin as a universal rewards point. That narrative and that use case really took the next level.
But CK, I would even take a step back, because I think, what Brian was alluding to there a little bit is that kind of one of the first realizations that these businesses need to have is that, Bitcoin does something to, the profits. Like the MicroStrategy 2020 kind of revelation that it was like, businesses holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, look at like Real Tahini's kind of guys. That's almost the first step. It's when you can start, converting some of your treasury to Bitcoin, that then you can turn around and be like, oh, you want to pay me in Bitcoin? Oh, okay. Well, then, like I already am comfortable with dealing with this and I see the value of holding it. I'm not just going to flip this back to fiat on the back end. Yep. I mean, I feel like that's a really huge step that happened last year too.
All 3 things. Absolutely. From it's kind of crazy to think about it from a monetary perspective, but Bitcoin absolutely evolved from a monetary perspective as a payment network, facilitating, payments denominated in BTC or other currencies, as a store of value for businesses, and as, again, programmable money, programmable reward point.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, just going around regulation and regulatory arbitrage and just, finding your own way, being like water. Has MicroStrategy created a Bitcoin ETF?
Who are you asking?
That's a serious question. I'm asking.
It's acting that way.
Is it? And will the SEC see it that way?
If you ask Michael Saylor, I think he's already answered this question with a defiant, no, this is not an ETF. I promise this is not an ETF. But
right, exactly.
If you ask anyone else,
he would say that.
If you ask anyone else, yeah, I think he did.
Well, I mean, every single Bitcoin-related stock is performing extremely well right now. I mean, is this a sign that, hey, you better start jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon if you want your stock to moon? Like, I mean, I feel like the results are pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new approach. I mean, the approach in 2017 was just put blockchain in your name and you'll moon. And in 2020 or 2021 rather, it seems like, well, people might be wise to that. But if you just buy a fuck ton of Bitcoin, then your stock might moon. I mean,
Bitcoin, not blockchain, actually turned into reality.
Finally,
that's
the Maximals
so true.
were right
I
once
thought
again.
about that. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. That's so true.
We memed it into being.
Yeah, this is what happens when you control the memes of production.
I will say though, I do miss Long Island Ice blockchain. That was a peak right there.
I'm actually like, they happened, but also Riot blockchain happened at the same time, and it's been very impressive seeing them not being a scam and actually like turning into a legitimate, North American mining operation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you also see what happens to these companies who don't hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and Ledger comes to mind. You know, they very, very publicly said they don't hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and look what happened to them. Giant hack. Everyone hates them now.
100%
It's a bad
correlated.
luck. I think
It's bad luck.
this is the new way to peak Bitcoin. Is you just ascribe luck to holding Bitcoin. If you hold Bitcoin, good things happen to you. If you don't hold Bitcoin, bad things happen to you.
Yeah.
And that might actually be, you know, I'm kind of joking, but in sort of a serious way, for Brian's case, that might be the best way to get people to start accepting Bitcoin. It's just convincing them to hold it first. And then once they hold it, they're more comfortable with it. And
I agree.
then they're
I think-
motivated to start actually accepting it because they want to increase their, it's like, I don't want this dirty fiat. I want this sick
Completely.
ass Bitcoin.
And it's like, I think it's like a maybe causation or correlation, but not causation. Like, yeah, people, I think MicroStrategy is better than an ETF because an ETF just sits there. Whereas he's like, when I think about these companies that are holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, they're pre-purchasing future labor. Like, think about it, whole annual salaries are going to be 1 million sats. That's amazing. You're just pre-purchasing future labor. And so I think that, and then I think this is the way we also solve the whole pizza shop and underperforming, you know, malinvestment things too. I'm going to go buy whole restaurant chains for sats on the dollar and switch them over to Bitcoin only. And I'll sit out front. I have all day. I'll sit out front with a table and explain to the customers why this is better. Because I have nothing else to do. Like, I'm going to buy this pizza shop and I'll sit on the sidewalk and explain to them what it is. And we'll get the local paper and that whole thing. And I agree. And then that'll start the circle of the luck. We'll just go through there.
Speaking of the luck factor, we were at our CEO David Bailey's home earlier, and he was talking about how a new Bitcoiner tradition at the beginning of the year, instead of eating like collard greens or something like that for good luck, we got to eat something orange for good luck, like yams. So eat orange for good luck instead of eating something green at the beginning of the year. I think it's a new trend.
Y'all, Bitcoin is that just Bitcoin becoming more of a religion where like we have special diets and
I mean, I'm waiting for my tax deferred status.
Yeah, when do we get
that's-
tax
that's a
exempt
good
status?
point.
That's the real question.
No, I mean, again, memes of production. Bitcoin's religion. Fuck yes, it is.
I'm all for
let's
it.
triple
Look,
down
I'm
on
not
that.
judging. I'm joining the Church of Bitcoin if we can formalize one. My tax deferred status.
You can be a priest. Brian definitely can be. He has the beard going already.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
Mine's
I
our
want to
priestly
transition
class.
us to our next topic. This topic is one that Bitcoiners always like to talk about. I think we can firmly say that we are fully into a Bitcoin bull market. I think we've been saying that since like 8K
Whoa.
on this show.
Whoa.
But
whoa,
we are
whoa.
all the way in the
Very
Bitcoin
bold.
bull market. Everything is
Okay.
raging and there's no doubt in sight. Colin, how are you feeling? How are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling like you're jinxing it right now. We just dropped $300 in the time that you said that, and I don't like.
If I
the
can
way
stop
this is going.
Bitcoin, then it's not what we thought it was.
$300.
I'm joking, of course. What is the question? Do I think we're in a bull market?
No, like let's talk about the bull market. I've confirmed
Okay.
it. It's you heard it
Okay.
here, folks.
It's a
First,
fait
guys.
accompli.
It's a bull market.
It's not a question. Okay.
So I confirmed the bull market when I had a Zoom meeting at work, and my coworker's boyfriend came and showed her his phone during the meeting, and I knew he was showing her the Bitcoin price. And that was the moment that I was like, we made it.
Yep, we made it.
Like, not even a Bitcoiner, but I just knew that's what he was showing her.
I'm not gonna lie though, you know, like I know where this should exist in the bull market cycle, but I already have the feeling in my stomach. Like it already feels like we're on the freaking roller coaster, and like this thing is moving. I mean, like we were saying, in December 17th was our last show. It was 22K. We're sitting at around 40K right now. That is crazy. A 2x already from above all-time highs. I can't believe that we are already in this phase of the market, and it makes me like that much more like feeling in the stomach about what's to come next.
Yeah. Very exciting. I don't really have any thoughts on the bull market.
Let's just talk
it's
about
a bull
it.
market.
Are you
We're
feeling really
OG,
right
we're like-
now?
Brand, to that point, I wake up and my like heart's pounding like some mornings when I wake up, and it's not And it's not just about the price. It's both, guys. It's like, it's that whole conversation we had of looking back on 2020 combined with, you're right, that's crazy that it went from 20 in December to 40 right now. And look, and I run my mouth like a lot on Twitter. Like, I really believe in like the power of Bitcoin, and I believe in freedom, and I'm like bullish on Bitcoiners and like all of it. Like, I believe Bitcoin fixes this. Like, I believe my answer to the religion thing is like, honestly, like, I believe the God that I serve is using Bitcoin to like bring peace to the world. Like, that's the way that I explain it. And so that all, like, everything we've talked about even so far today, combined with, yes, just straight up price, like my like heart beats when I'm like waking up, and I feel like I'm waking up like on a mission. And that is, dude, I don't know. Like, sometimes I literally do just have to like go for a walk and like just try to clear my head and like think about it. And so it's heavy. Like, it is heavy a little bit to me.
Totally. And you know, it's crazy too to like to have this, I don't know, like to have this point of view, this perspective where, you know, we're all just along for the ride. Like, we're on the roller coaster, we're strapped in, and yet, like, you know, it's cranking, and there's so many people not strapped in, and even worse, there's so many people, you know, actively not strapping in because you know, XYZ authority, you know, trusted person, someone who's an expert has told them that this is not real, like this is fake, this is, somehow we still have that today. And like, that's the part that like really gets me going, is like, you know, what more proof do you need that this thing is real? You know, this is not a 10-year tulip bubble. We're talking about, you know, a new paradigm in money. Why won't people at least like open their minds to the idea that like maybe this is something that people should be paying attention to?
JP Morgan just
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll go.
Britt, then Colin.
I'm like the exact opposite. Like, I have a few friends who are like just getting on the bandwagon, like, oh, I bought sub 30K, and like they're texting me like so excited, like every hour, and like I'm doing the celebration with them, or doing the celebration, like I'm so stoked, like I'm pumped for them to like share the excitement, to like be a part of it. I'm like, come with us, like we're having a great time. Like, they're like,
I agree with Britt.
Like, everybody's can get on board. There's room for everybody. And so like I've been having a great time lately, just sharing excitement with a lot of new Bitcoiners.
Is Bitcoin waking people up, Britt? Like, beyond just Bitcoin's mooning?
You know, I almost kind of think that people are just recognizing that the time, like all this like quarantine and lockdown stuff, I feel like people have been kind of recognizing that their time is worth more than I think that they were previously aware of. It's starting to come to the surface. Like, anyone who hasn't gotten grounded lately, or hasn't like tried to remove the kind of like superficial things in their life lately, like, I don't know, maybe they're not going to figure it out. But I think that like most people are kind of starting to evaluate like this idea of discernment, like what is my time worth? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's more of the awakening of just like, you know, everybody makes investments. We do it all the time. We do it with our money, but we also do it with our time. And I think that people are kind of starting to overlap. And that's what's really great is, you know, we want the people who can recognize that to come with us in the future, that like, you know, time isn't frivolous, and, you know, your life is important. It's finite, just like Bitcoin, you know?
Britt, you hit on something that, like, you know, I love to rant on, so I'll condense this one as much as I can. But, you know, throughout 2020, we've seen unrest, and we've seen, like, you know, real emotional, like, visceral reactions to what's going on. And, you know, I'm a big believer that part of what our society has done to really hurt the average person is we've removed from the vocabulary the ability to precisely you know, enunciate and say what it is that's wrong. Like, people's value, their time has been absolutely like cut, like devalued. Everyone is feeling less valuable. We feel like we're less able to, you know, interact with the global hubbub and economy in a way that, like, you know, we feel like we can have safety and security. And a lot of that, you know, can be fully based in the fact that we have inflation, rampant inflation in this world, that we're not allowed to measure because we measure inflation by CPI, which just doesn't account for where we're seeing inflation, which is your ability to go to a good college, your ability to store wealth, your ability to own stock, like all these kind of things. Like that's what's inflating. And to your point, I feel like a freaking idiot when I keep like harping on this, but the money printer go burr meme was like the first time we had words that people understood that explained what this feeling that they felt was, where like it's the system is unfair and I can't figure out how it's unfair, but it's unfair. It's because money printer go burr. And it's like, when you connect that with Bitcoin, it's a crazy revelation. I don't know. I feel like that's what I was getting from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Colin, add on to this. We're vibing here.
Well, I saw yesterday that JP Morgan, I don't know, but probably their research, someone in the research team updated their price outlook for Bitcoin to $146,000 before, I think, the end of 2021 or something like that. And it occurred to me that on a long enough timeline, everyone capitulates to Bitcoin, because it was just in 2017 or 2018 that JP Morgan was calling it a fraud. I mean, the CEO of JP Morgan was calling it a fraud. And the only difference on that timeline is how long you want to remain foolish. I mean, it's clear. It's just clear at this point. I don't know if Bitcoin's going to take over the world. I don't know if it's going to become the reserve currency of the world, but it's clearly here to stay. It serves a function. It's the only way, if nothing else, that I can send $1 billion to someone in fucking Zimbabwe and no one can tell me no. And I can do it right now. If I have enough Bitcoins, I can do it. I'm really suspicious of the people who think this thing's just gonna die. Like it's fair to have skepticism about it becoming a reserve currency. We don't have giant armies, telling the rest of the world not to make it a reserve currency like the U.S. dollar has. That's very powerful, as we've seen this year. That's extremely powerful. But yeah, the people that think it's gonna just go away, I think you're delusional at this point. Like it's weathered enough of these storms. It's gonna take a lot for it to die. And so that's kind of the thought I have on that. With regard to the bull market, I keep my eyes peeled for the next shitcoin boom. That was obviously a huge part of 2017. I'm hopeful that this XRP lawsuit will send a warning out to these people that you may not be able to get away with that. Normally, I would be kind of against the SEC coming down on any coin, just because I generally like people to be able to make whatever dumb financial decisions they want to make. It's if you want to waste your money on scams, like it's your money.
That's your prerogative.
Yeah, it's your prerogative. I don't believe in protecting people from themselves for the most part, but we have the government that we have. It's good for Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin accelerationist. So if the SEC suing XRP is good for Bitcoin at this point, I'm for it. I hope they shut it down. I think it'd be great, because I know they can't shut down Bitcoin. They can shut down XRP because there's someone to sue. That's the whole point. That's the whole problem with it. So I'm hopeful on that end, but the other thing that makes me hopeful is we had kind of a DeFi mini boom there for like a little while in like Q4, Q3 of 2020. And, ETH was pumping kind of hard because of that. But like that whole narrative kind of like came and went pretty quickly. I mean, I know like it's still kind of a buzzword, but it doesn't have that ICO je ne sais quoi that a lot of these shitcoins had in 2017 that really just got people crazy. And I'm not hearing about DeFi. And I wonder if, against all of my predictions, that maybe the market, and I'm knocking on wood here on this because I don't want to jinx it, but are people figuring it out that like these things are fads, but Bitcoin's not a fad, and maybe they're not going to buy in so much?
So
this time around,
I would say probably yes and no. Like Bitcoin definitely has way more legitimacy, And a great way to show like how much better Bitcoin is by showing them the long tail of shitcoins and being like, you know, these have all changed over time, but there's been one thing staying at the top the whole time. So I feel like there is a difference there. But with that being said, only in like investing against diversification, viewing these things other outside of like stocks that go up and down, like that mental model doesn't make sense to most people outside of Bitcoin. So like if anything, the shitcoin thing, like that's like a fiat mental model placed on top of like Bitcoin's open source permissionless world that it has created. So
it's unit bias too, right? Like it's like, well, I can't afford a Bitcoin, but I can afford this Doge.
It's just everything fiat. You know, just imagine everything that's wrong with fiat. Unit bias is always in play with like interest rates and stuff like that, and all this other stuff that, you know, games that they play in the fiat world, and that's what shitcoins are. And until the majority of the world literally changes their operating system for how the world works, like we're gonna see shitcoin pumps, and it's gonna continue to be part of, you know, the Bitcoin experience.
I'm gonna say something controversial here real fast. I want to make a public prediction here that Michael Saylor is going to betray all this, because he is I believe he did an interview with BTC Times, and he said, stop talking about censorship resistance, stop talking about privacy, we hate that. And so I fear that he's going to go out there and say, you know, there's this better coin. It's compliance bro coin, but it's just as fast as Bitcoin. It's faster even. There's more transactions per second, and it's compliant with SEC rules. And so we're gonna move to that, and that's better. And that's the problem I see with following Michael Saylor down this rabbit hole and making him one of these heroes to die on.
Where did this come from?
So wait, I hear you on the fact that he doesn't like Bitcoin being a currency. Like he likes it to be gold and an investment, and like, you know, the narrative ends there for him. And right. I find that weird, and I find that something that everyone shouldn't be hanging their hat on, putting him up there. I will say, you know, one of the interesting things that he actually has kind of brought into the mainstream narrative of Bitcoin is the cyber hornet aspect that is like, you know, Bitcoiners will defend Bitcoin, you know, to the death, and that actually makes it more valuable than everything else. And so from that perspective, I would be surprised to see him, just jump off the boat and go to a different coin. The one thing I did want to throw in though is, you know, when we're talking about DeFi versus like, you know, the ICO boom of old, one thing to keep in mind is like, ICO boom of old was like dentists are going to use this to transact in their dental office, right? And it was so dumb, but it was also like very simple for people to understand. Whereas, you know, the DeFi of today is like, we figured out a way to augment the yield curve on, you know, Ethereum, or, you know, collateralizing loans. And, you know, grandma or you know, mom and pa are not going to figure that out. They're not going to like see the value in that and invest in that. And so I feel like there's a chance that this DeFi boom that may or may not happen in the same shitcoin way as the ICOs may actually be really subdued from the mainstream, just because like the topics and the problems that they're trying to tackle this time around are a little bit more like complicated and harder to grasp for like your average person.
I don't know, man. I mean, look at Hex. Look at what's that guy's name? He's like the spam king of Richard Hart. Yeah, spam king of Panama. He creates Hex, and he advertises it as a Bitcoin certificate of deposit. And it just goes apeshit. I mean, we were all calling it a scam from the beginning. Like, it's clear this guy is a classic scammer, a classic affinity scammer in Bitcoin. And it just blows up. And it's taking Bitcoin and then taking those boring financial product in history, the CD, and putting it on Bitcoin, right? And the reason it did that is because he's a good marketer, and on his website he just violates all these securities laws by saying, I guarantee it's gonna go up 1,000% this year, and then it did. And so I don't know, maybe we're overthinking it, and that's really all that you have to do, and all the other stuff is just
I mean, this is what I said, the world is operating on this fiat mindset still, so they're gonna keep falling for the BS.
I think you're right, Christian. I think that's a good way to put it.
People need to change their mental model.
Yeah, I mean, run the numbers is a powerful meme, right? But at what point, though, is the return on investment of Bitcoin just surpassing the return on investment of a shitcoin. You know what I mean? Like BTC is already up 300% on the year. So, you know, at some point.
Well, it's an easy 300%. Whereas like if you're playing the shitcoin game, like, okay, maybe you get a moon, but like it's hard. That's hard work. Whereas you can just stack sats and go to the moon.
Yeah.
I bring up the Michael Saylor thing because it's just a tale as old as time, and he's kind of flirting with that narrative. I mean, look at Raoul Pal. That guy is just, he's going balls deep on the ETH stuff, and he was the Bitcoiner's Bitcoiner from the establishment, from traditional finance, and now I
don't know. I consider Raoul Pal to be very different than Michael Saylor. And honestly, I think that Michael Saylor is just trying to help the Cyber Hornets with their messaging towards certain people. Not necessarily saying what Bitcoin is. That's been my impression. But hey, that's just my opinion.
I mean, there's something really unique about slaying your heroes in Bitcoin. It's almost always inevitable.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Satoshi slayed himself, right?
Yeah, you die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, as they say. So
yeah.
I have two altcoin statements. All right, first altcoin statement. Sometimes I just watch just altcoin YouTube to just see what's going on, and some of these people these channels that I'm like flipping through, something that I think is different than 2017 is they very subtly like orange pill themselves and drop these just massive truth bomb sentences in the middle of their streams. So they'll just be, an hour long, hour and a half long, and they'll say things like, make sure that you're checking your charts are in sats instead of USD because, sometimes these outperform USD, but they don't always outperform Bitcoin. And they'll say things like that, and they'll just move on to the next point. And then I've literally heard them say this. They'll say, altcoins are like mostly for noobs. So you just want to make sure that you're like holding Bit, and like they'll say things like this. Like I've heard these sentences. And so
that's hilarious.
That's definitely different than 2017.
That's hilarious. Just like this is for like the new people that don't know anything.
It's
you
great,
buy these
dude.
coins.
And this is like 45 minutes just deep in the like pulling up the 17th chart. Like we're deep in the chat. Like we don't know what we're doing, and then they'll just say the sentences, and it's interesting, really interesting. And then number two, I like finally did a okay amount of reading on like RSK at like the last like 10 days of the year, and like downloaded Sovereign and was like playing with that for the first time, which is like a DeFi on Bitcoin thing. And I really encourage people to watch CK's interview with Sovereign about that. And I compared it side by side with Compound for the first time. Like I'd never used Compound before, and dude, ETH on-chain fees are terrible. It sucks. Dude, it sucks bad. And I honestly I hadn't ever really tried to like do any of that. And so doing a side-by-side comparison and trying Sovereign for the first time is cool. Like, and so I kind of, the whole thing of like Liquid, Lightning, and RSK all working together as like kind of L2s in different degrees is like really kind of crystallizing for me a little bit, which is giving me just more confidence and more nuance to just explain to people that like, look, then also these tokens, like I hate the word tokens because tokens come across as like cheap, like Chuck E. Cheese, like token or whatever. So I don't like using that, but like the tokens are not married to their chains. Like the way that Tether runs on multiple chains now, and Tether just is for like trust it or don't trust it or whatever, like Tether, the thing, is not married to ETH and runs on all these chains. And so I like all these utility things or assets or securities, like whatever it is, this them running on a Bitcoin side chain has kind of like crystallized for me into understanding that and kind of like coming to peace with that. And then probably like a third or second and a half thing is like Nick Carter's series on like stable coins and crypto dollars on his podcast is really, really good. Like that made me kind of understand just the whole euro dollar system, and just when you learn how fiat works anyways, stable coins get a lot easier to like come to grips with, because I'm like, oh, it's just like fiat sucks in general. So it's like, and it's weird to trust it in general. So stable coins or crypto dollars or whatever, I don't know. I was able to come to terms with it a little bit better. So that's what I had to say about altcoins, is that I think the YouTubers are, as messy as it still is, still randomly say sentences that show that they get it. and the side chain Bitcoin thing, I think, is really maturing.
I want to go back to Britt. You kind of talked about like what happens if Bitcoin just outperforms. I think what Brian said is true. Like Bitcoin constantly outperforms, and you need to price your stuff in Sats. And on the flip side, like you are working on building Bitcoin infrastructure, Bitcoin layer 2, Bitcoin tooling. What's your take on like the emergence of all of this infrastructure on top of Bitcoin? It's been being built for the past like 3+ years or so, but it seems as though finally there are applications and use cases and players that are really starting to leverage this stuff. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day for sure. Bitcoin's still pretty young. 12 years is pretty young. I mean, in retrospect for a currency, it is. So as far as like additional layers built on top of Bitcoin, I definitely think it's inevitable. But what's important, I think, is to not move fast and break things when we're dealing with people's wealth, but yeah, to just grow the system organically. And you see things like Strike where people can do things like use payroll and get paid in Bitcoin from their regular job, like just putting it out there for people in other countries who don't have access to banking that's as great as the US, like it's all about just like Colin said, like being like water, right? Where it's like filling in the cracks, like slowly but surely. And I think that's when it's kind of unstoppable, is it's just like really growing organically, and it's not over engineered like a lot of the shitcoins are, where it's always an actual use case. It's always actually someone's prerogative. That's when it's really successful, right?
Absolutely. Colin, you want to jump in, or should we go to the next topic?
I don't have any more thoughts on that, but yeah, Britt handled it nicely.
Yeah, I agree.
Not
And
surprisingly.
I think a good transition here is, what are the precoiners saying to you guys, right? So, layer 2 is kind of coming along, Bitcoin's usability is coming along, Bitcoin's legitimacy obviously has come a long way. What are precoiners kind of saying to you? A lot of Bitcoiners are kind of experiencing the text and the messages and all that kind of stuff about now. Colin.
That's interesting that you asked me that, because it's actually, I mean, anecdotally, it tells me that we're still kind of at the beginning of this bull run, because I'm not getting anywhere near the amount of text as I was getting at the beginning of the bull run in 2017. Like regular people, at least the ones I know, like they may have looked at the price or heard about it because they know me, and so they're kind of tangentially interested in it. But most people are not texting me like they were, saying like, dude, what's going on? Some people who I got to buy coins in like 2016 were like, hey, when's this gonna bottom out again so I can buy more? And I'm like, never. Buy now. It's never buy. We're at the bottom right now. It's never going lower. I mean, I'm pumping my own bags, so I mean, I'm doing what I can for all of us, but I can only do so much, and there's not that many people texting me.
Makes sense. Let's take a quick pause and introduce our final panelist. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy doing Bitcoin's work out there. How's it going, Katie? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sorry for being late, guys. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. I actually listened to a few minutes of your talk before. Super excited to be here. I'm Katie, the Russian. Recently changed my handle. I think it's more pronounceable for you all. Yep.
Katie, what do you
Katie.
do? I know you've been a big part of, helping people find some more sovereignty, helping people find some more clarity and safety, kind of out of all the craziness in 2020.
Well, yeah, trying to do my best. So I actually think that 2020 was like a big highlight for all of us, kind of proving the point of why we take the sovereign approach to everything, right? Like when you take those extra steps in normal life, you don't really win a lot compared to other people who do shit. But then in years like this, in 2020, like we all striving through life still, like everything is okay. yes, life around us sucks, but like it doesn't suck that bad for us because we were ready, we were prepared for all of that. Am I supposed to be careful with my bed worsts?
No,
No.
you're fine. We're just playing
Okay.
around with the fact that we keep flying into the background and then reemerging. But keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was really great confirmation for all of us. And now we know why we're doing it. We're going to keep spreading the words. And people around us who didn't take those steps now understanding why we were doing it, why we were that crazy people, learning skills and trying to find alternative ways around. And maybe they will take action too.
I think that's a really good way to transition back to our topic is like, what are precoiners saying? When you're engaging with folks that aren't Bitcoiners, they could be interested in it. They want to know what you're up to, why you're traveling so much with this kind of stuff. Like, what's that conversation like these days? Katie.
We don't really I don't really have any precoiners friends anymore. Like I barely interact with them. They're not part of my universe anymore. Fun thing happened at the meetup. We just had a meetup in Boulder a week ago or so, and some man was passing by on a bicycle and was like asking why are we a huge group of people hanging out together. And we're like, we're talking about Bitcoin, and the thing he said was, I was going to invest in this thing, but then Guardian said that we need to save a planet and we won't be able to save the planet because of Bitcoin. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Like, first of all, who's listening Guardian? But like, he just buying whatever they're saying on media. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, do your own research is not part of their life.
I'm picturing that article, with the huge header that they put at the top of their articles being like, please save the Guardian, invest, donate $1,000 to us to make sure we can stay afloat. And then it's like, scroll down and it's Bitcoin is destroying the world. I don't know. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, so I've got kind of an interesting theory. Like most of the people that are hitting me up about Bitcoin these days, I'd say like honestly 95% of the people hitting me up are, to be honest, people who at some point in their life have had some kind of like ego death, like something that caused them to have that like world shattering, like the way to make you question, like, is like the media narrative like the only way, right? Like however you want to define this like ego death or whatever. But I mean, maybe it comes from your country having hyperinflation, or maybe, it comes from psychedelics. Who knows? But it's definitely a very clear indication to me that it's people who are thinking outside the box right now. A lot of people who are trying to do the standard thing, trying to do what's right, are not listening. They're not paying attention. They don't hear what I'm saying. They're not having any part of it. And so I agree with what Katie said. It's like that guy on the bicycle, like, well, the thought leaders told me not to. So
I actually want to talk about forced coiners. I have a lot of forced coiners friends who are like, give me your phone, I'm buying Bitcoin from your card. I don't care what you think about it. Like, I'm just gonna force it on you. And they started reaching out to me because they're like, hey Katie, it tripled, it quadrupled, how do I sell? And I'm like, not happening, dude. Like, you're gonna be forced hodling this shit until you learn something about it. And once they learn, they're not gonna sell because they understand the value of it. So all those forced coiners are doing just fine.
Britt, you brought up something. I feel like you and I are like jamming on some of the things that we're saying, but you were talking about like the ego shattering, right? And I think that one of the things that is profound to me in this space is that Bitcoin accommodates all ideologies. It truly does. Like, there's no real bent in terms of ideology that Bitcoin has. It's a technology, but we see a vast majority of people in the Bitcoin space today having this certain ideology. And like, to be frank, there's a bunch of people who, support Trump in Bitcoin. It's like way more people support Trump than support Biden. Why is that? Well, part of the reason I feel like, and this is something that you're kind of hitting on, is like one of the things that that Trump forced was a breaking of the mainstream narrative, and because of that, it's so much easier to understand Bitcoin if it's like everything that you're reading every day. You just don't take it face value as being true and do what you're told. And so I wonder, I wonder if there's like more to that. You know, how often do people see, you know, this mainstream narrative shatter in front of them in such a profound way that all of a sudden they can look at Bitcoin with a fresh pair of eyes and maybe, you know, not bring some of these preconceived notions that they have, you know, in their back pocket when they come and look at it. I don't know, something that you just made me think of.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear from some of like the California guys. I feel like it's pretty wild out there. I mean, have you seen anything like that? I mean, Brian, I know you've been helping business owners. It seems like they're open to it, right? I mean,
Yeah. So my like precoiner combined with what Brand just said is I definitely have the ones that are talking to me are the texts that I'm getting are like, again, like yesterday with everything that was happening in the current events yesterday, I did get the text that said like, wow, like that's pretty crazy that like gold was down $30 yesterday, but then Bitcoin hit all-time high. Wow, you know, pretty crazy headlines, political headlines were like up in turmoil like yesterday. And so I definitely get those texts of like, wow, like they're almost writing the exit narrative themselves without me saying it. And they're realizing that like Bitcoin, I didn't have to tell them that it was political. Like they already understood that it was political. And then the other thing, to kind of what Colin was saying earlier too, of just like it just makes you lucky, like get to that one part. Like a line that's hitting for me a lot pre-corners right now is like, dude, just get to 021. Like literally get to 021, please. Like look at the website, like look at the numbers and get to 021, because it's like gambling and like giving the middle finger to the establishment like all at the same time. And what else are you using your money on? It's skin in the game.
It's giving the middle finger to the establishment with skin in the game.
And what else are you doing with your money? Bullshit. Like you're not doing anything. What is your solution? You know, hit me with it. Like I'm always open to being pitched. Like you text me with whatever your pitch is, whatever you want. Like hit me. And if it's better, we'll do your thing. But none of you have texted me yet. So I'm texting you. Like, so I like, look, I'm down. Tell me what it is. So that's like the main way it goes back and forth with me. And I've been really thankful. Like the past 3 months, like have been really good for my little I have like 4 or 5 like Bitcoin gang on Facebook now. On Facebook. That's sweet. I'm not talking to a void on Facebook at all. I've got my 4 and 5 Bitcoin friends. So sweet.
I feel like oh, go ahead, Colin.
Well, I was just going to say that I think what yesterday taught us is that we had this idea that civilization, and in this case the United States, is this kind of firm thing, or a lot of people had this idea that it's this firm thing. And you know, I was surprised. I was like, of all the places that you could storm, how on earth did they get into the Capitol? I mean, if there's one place you'd think that they would have, you know, pretty locked up tight, especially on a day like that, when that many people advertised they were coming, and you knew what kind of people were coming. I think it really shatters the illusion that civilization is ever not on the chopping block at any point. I mean, it really can change like that, you know? And I think a lot of people saw that. And if they weren't buying Bitcoin 2 days ago or yesterday, maybe today or tomorrow, they're thinking, man, I need to like get some shit hit the fan, like backup money here, because it really can just go all wrong really quickly. And I think that, I mean, 2020 has showed that, but I think yesterday it was like peak 2020, like hangover. Like it's a hangover. That was such a 2020 moment that occurred yesterday. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But I don't know if these kinds of things are over with.
Sort of synthesizing what you said with what Britt said too, you know, one of the ego-shattering type, you know, pieces of media that you can kind of read is Sapiens, I think. And there's like a high correlation between people who have read Sapiens and Bitcoiners, right? And one of the things that they talk about in there is like, you know, society is just shared myths. And, you know, it's very surreal for people to watch the myth of the United States, you know, at least have holes in it from a dude in a bearskin pelt on his head just standing in the center of power of the United States. I mean, it's crazy that happened. But, that's something that maybe, it just takes that to kind of realize that, we have to be able to fall back on something that's a little more grounded in reality than, the current system that we have.
But it's so much worse than that, because we like live in two Americas now, where everyone has their echo chamber, and like we're part of this too. Like right now we're doing this live stream where we're pumping Bitcoin. Like this is how the internet works now, where I think like a lot of people on each side say, man, how can anyone on the other side believe what they believe when they have the same information that I do? And the thing is that they don't have the same information that you do. They have the complete opposite information that you do. And that's why they believe completely the opposite things that you believe. And all we do is we sit there on our computers and we have an echo chamber, an algorithm that's designed to confirm our biases about everything. And so it's not surprising then that you have these two Americas, one that says Donald Trump's the most evil person that has ever walked the planet, and the other side saying Donald Trump is the greatest man that has ever walked the planet. And the problem is that you either like believe this guy's the worst, or you think like a politician is going to fix all your problems. I mean, that's kind of the issue here, is that we're making like idols out of someone, or we're making them our idol to like burn down or something like that.
To kind of add something else too, like politics wasn't always this big and important part of our lives. I feel like the amount that the government across the globe affects the people that live under that government in modern times is at all-time high, and it's affecting people more and more just because of that. And maybe that's why people are paying attention to politics so much more, and it's become so much more divisive, because it actually matters more, and it kind of comes back to the money, and the money is controlled by these people, right? And your freedom and your ability to run your business and your ability to get access to that money printer, it all hinges on the money. So it is kind of interesting to kind of see people slowly wake up to that fact. And it's not like that knowledge is new, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. Money runs the world. Our money makes the world go round. All this kind of like sayings, like this knowledge has been ingrained into society for a long time, but like the rubber is meeting the road now, and there's actually a new money that can compete, and the results of what monetary technology you adopt are pretty drastic, I think.
To your point too, it's not even this knowledge that's ingrained, it's these myths that are ingrained. It's like I was literally, this is the top of my mind because I've been listening to the audiobook recently again, but like Dr. Harari in Sapiens points out, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a myth. Like we all, it triggers me whenever I hear that, but it's because I love it so much. It's so fascinating, but it's like we all intuitively believe that like all people are created equal and they have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But that's not fundamentally true. That is like a shared myth that we have all agreed upon. And it's like, that's just one level of abstraction when we're talking about, what do we believe today as the truths? Like Colin said, Trump is great or Trump is evil, whatever. It's like even below that, there are these myths that we're all agreeing on that could be shattered, which are people are created equal, that, that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, what's the pursuit of happiness? All these kind of things are like societal threads that are way more in the balance than I feel like people maybe realized before yesterday even. Yeah. Britt, I see you shaking or nodding your head. You want to add in?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been about the control of the narrative, right? They like to push that idea, money is the root of all evil, but that's not true. Counterfeit money is the root of all evil.
Counterfeit money in what way?
Yeah, like this idea that a certain group of people have access to how we create the money, and there's just a better system of money out there now. And so it's only a matter of time until, people start converting over to that. But, it's hard. It's hard to break that worldview when, how many people have this personal philosophy of, oh, I'm not good at math, well, it's hard to break something like that, but your time is valuable.
Totally.
So the book says that all men are created equal as a myth.
Yeah, I mean, he takes it from like the biological perspective, but he's like, what in biology tells you, what in science tells you that all people are created equal? I mean, there's nothing there that says that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that Yuval Noah Harari I'm assuming probably an atheist, so he doesn't have he's not sharing a concept with religious people that God makes people equal. It's just as a brute fact of life on Earth, there is no rule that says all men are equal. And I mean, maybe it should be that way, and it's better if we all believe that, and it's better if we act like that is true, and life will be better if we do. But there is no objective truth that we're all created equal. Might makes right. I'm more equal than you are if I'm bigger. I can take from you, and then now we're not so equal, are we? So
yeah,
it's kind of a brute force thing like that.
You definitely hit the nail on the head there. And just to help smooth around the edges, he's like contrasting this with saying, like radiation exists. It's like, okay, well, you can believe that radiation doesn't exist, but if you're gonna stand in front of a radioactive something, it'll kill you eventually, right? They're choosing not to believe in that doesn't change the truth. Whereas choosing not to believe, if everyone decides that all men aren't created equal, that can change whether all men are created equal or not. That's kind of where he's coming at, assuming kind of this atheist take on it. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
So I have a quick question and a thought here is does Bitcoin create better myths, right? And I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been speaking with a priest as part of marriage counseling, and he kind of tells the history of the Orthodox Church as hand over shoulder lineage of clergy, and every time a new priest or person is added to the church, it's always touching someone that it can be traced all the way back to Jesus. And the whole point of everything the church does is to get closer to that original truth. And I look at something like a Bitcoin, and that it's like a way stronger chain all the way back to Genesis. It's a truly immutable chain going straight back to Genesis, and it's more like radiation, except that it provides property rights. Like, you can't ignore whether or not someone has a private key or not to the Bitcoin network. Like, it's more like radiation in that fact, but at the same time, it's kind of closer to all men are created equal. Anyone who has a private key can interact with this network, and that's it.
You have to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, not dividing the network is obviously a big part of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. What are you going to say?
I want to know what Katie thinks. She's awfully quiet over there, but she looks like she's pontificating on all of this.
We're getting deep.
Thinking, yeah.
I mean,
I actually had a question to you, Colin, but I don't want to interrupt this.
Oh, go for it.
Keep thinking yet. Okay, you called yesterday a hangover of 2020, which kind of implied that 2021 is going to be different. Do you expect it to go back to normal? Like, what are your predictions, guys?
I don't. No, I don't predict it to go back to normal anytime soon. But I don't have like a very qualified opinion on that. It's just my gut.
I feel like there's a new normal, and I'm disappeared, but yeah, like it's kind of up to
green screen.
It's kind of up to citizens, like to voyage what that new normal is and where they're gonna plant their flag, right? Like, or where they're gonna freaking bend over.
Interestingly,
what did normal even mean? Kind of to your myth question, like what did normal even mean the first time anyway? What did it mean? Like, it was different.
Maybe normal was exposed because in California, normal, you realize that you actually didn't have very many rights, and maybe if you're somewhere else in the world, you realize that normal does include more rights.
My normal actually just very recently changed. Like throughout the whole year of 2020, nothing in my lifestyle has changed. Literally nothing. I was in places that were completely open. I interacted with the same people. I traveled. Like everything was the same. And a week ago, I made it to Colorado, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like that was crazy. It was such a, wake up slap, because like I'm not a depressive person or whatever you say. It's like, but living in this for a year, I would be like really not happy at this point. Like nothing is open. I couldn't believe it. And again, that's about jurisdictional arbitrage. Like in Florida, everything's fine.
Thank God for jurisdictional arbitrage.
Britt, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I've heard so many people say that they've never felt so alienated from like the normal people that they would normally interact with, but then at the same time, paradoxically, never have felt more connected to people through the digital space or the internet space, which is so crazy to me because I do kind of share that feeling, that sentiment. I mean, being here with everyone right now, obviously we all have something in common, and that's great. And I do work on like an international project that we all work on just remotely. So I've always kind of felt that. But I think it's really interesting this year, and hopefully going into next year, is just how this idea of just decentralized communities are really going to play a role. And people who are able to join these kinds of communities and find themselves in, whether it's Bitcoin, Twitter, or a project online, whether you join the BTCPay Mattermost chat, whatever it is, like, even like the taco people on Twitter, right? Like, it's just about forming these online communities these days. And it's crazy because they kind of tried to like suppress these connections between each other. And it ended up being that everyone just learned all these new skills and these new ways to communicate in online communities. And so it's such an interesting outcome of that.
To your point about having less connections but deeper connections, like I can definitely relate to that, because we're not able to be exposed to the same amount of people. Like we're not going to like music events, etc. Maybe we started valuing those we have around more. And it kind of reminds me about like how altcoiners are all into like spread it out throughout those shitcoins, have no commitment to any of them, and then we're like having this deep connection and love to Bitcoin. So maybe the same.
Yeah.
I can attest that shitcoiners do not have the same sort of conviction towards their coin. Even like part of the Ethereum ecosystem, there's quote unquote ETH maxis, but they're still, happy to dump ETH for some shitcoin. So it's a very different kind of conviction. And I personally think that's why normal everyday people are kind of seeing Bitcoiners and are like, what the heck is wrong with you people? Why are you smiling and grilling and walking around without fear when everyone else is trembling, right? And I think that this is kind of an interesting point, but we had a Bitcoin Magazine happy hour where a gentleman who worked for a travel company that accepted both fiat and crypto out in Vietnam came on. And I think, Brian, this is the stream that you were on, but he was talking about how when the lockdown happened, their fiat sales on their travel sales went to zero. And all of their sales were 99% led by crypto and Bitcoin. So I think that tells you a lot about the people who have adopted the money, right? The people who've adopted fiat and still living in the fiat world, they're scared. They shut down. They're not moving around. But you have Bitcoiners like Katie who, they're truly living on Bitcoin. That's their bank account. That's their saving account. That's their money. And they're using these services that allow them to use Bitcoin directly for services. And they're still traveling. They're still moving around. Like, they're not scared. So seeing that, just kind of like, even me, like, I'm less scared than the people around me in general. I feel like I got masks before the people around me. I realized that, hey, maybe masks weren't super effective, in every situation faster than people around me. Like, all of this stuff, I feel like we're just kind of 2 steps ahead. And honestly, I think Bitcoiners are living closer to the truth because, there's just one more true thing in our lives, and that's Bitcoin.
We definitely do have less fears. Like to be able to be able to say fuck you to government, like to question authority, you already have to be fearless, and like that's what we do. So all those people are like, government is going to ban Bitcoin, so I'm not going to compete with them. Like, hedge against government. Like, they are the same people. They're not smarter than you. They're more evil than you. Like, you are able to say a word against them. That's fine. So like, stop living in fear. And I was on a bus from ski resort to parking lot recently. And for the first time in my life, I've actually heard somebody mask shaming another person. And it was like 25-year-old dude shaming 60-year-old man. And like, I was super tired and I didn't say anything. And I've been thinking for days now how I should have stood up for this man. Like, this is all bullshit. And I'm like blaming myself for not doing it. So pretty much I want to empower everybody to like speak out. Like, this is not going to go away unless we start to connect with other people who are not okay, but like maybe they're in fear to say something. And the more the better. And that's how we win the battle.
You know, to bring this a little bit full circle to what we were talking about just a second ago, you know, one thing that's not a myth is that human beings need social connection in order to like be happy. That's like, you know, it releases dopamine, it makes you happy, all those kind of, you know, you find fulfillment. There's, you know, the myth would be the reason you are even alive is to, you know, interact with people and like form those relationships, right? I think that we have a shared myth in society right now that that's not necessary. And that is a myth that was born out of, you know, the fear of COVID. And, you know, that can only last so long in the same way that you can, you know, only not believe in radiation for so long. Eventually people are going to need to be able to interact with each other. And so to take that back to your question, Katie, you know, I'm an optimist. I'm never not an optimist. So I do think that we'll go back, like we'll go back to normal. But what I would want to caveat or like preface that with is, you know, the other thing, I'm an optimist and I give really long toasts, which you can probably tell from the amount of time that I've been rambling on here. But, you know, my 2021 toast this year was like, you know, 2020 sucked, but it also taught us not to take these years for granted. And it's like, you know, everyone could think back on 2019. We were like, 2019 was an awful year. And 2018 was an awful year. And it's like we get to 2020. It's like, okay, we didn't even know the definition of an awful year until 2020 came around. And so, you know, the challenge would be to look at 2021 and be like, all right, well, let's hope and assume that and pray that, you know, social interaction will come back. Let's not, you know, take that for granted. And let's also, you know, recognize the value and the good in that. And, you know, everything else that may change, all the new normal type stuff that may happen, but, you know, double down on the things that you need and the things that are good. And in that, like, from that perspective, you know, the new normal is really better than 2020 anyway. So, I don't know. I guess that kind of answered the question, but I am optimistic about like this year being better, and we just have to make it better.
I think one more great takeaway is that I had recently actually is not to let other people's inaction guilt you into inaction. I was actually watching one of Katie's videos just the other day. I didn't even know she was going to be on this stream, so I was excited for her to be on the stream. I was watching her video on like the different places you can go and become a citizen quickly and renounce your citizenship in. And I think that she had, I don't know, it was on a tweet or something, and some guy commented like, "Oh, so your guys' solution is just to leave the places that aren't the way you want them to be, and just fuck you for building the roads for me and for providing the society for me, and you're just gonna leave for leave it to the rest of us to fix." And it's like, dude, if you want to give up your money to a bunch of like grubby, greedy people, then that's your problem. It's too big for me to fix. So like, I'm just gonna go, and that'll speak more than I think me staying here and trying to fix things. It's just go around, just opt out, and that'll show other people they can opt out. And the good places will hopefully eventually win out because more people want to live there. And the shitty places like California will have people leaving like they are. And that's exactly what we're seeing. People are just myself included, getting the fuck out of California and moving to places that actually want you.
I'm curious if there's any stats about people fleeing open and free states because they're not safe enough and they need to seek shelter in a lockdown state. I'm very curious if there's any stats to justify that, because I haven't seen anything like that.
Yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot. When Oracle and Elon Musk are saying "fuck you," I'm going to Texas, I think that tells you everything you need to know. It's like, I'm going to bring all my workers with me, by the way, and California just is doubling down. They're doubling down on this wealth tax that they're trying to pass with a 10 fucking year look back. 10 years. If you spent 60 days here, then you owe us for the next 10 years 0.4% of your wealth. Fuck you. Just classic government incompetence of, I'm gonna do what gets me money for the next 2 years. I'm not gonna think about what happens to my economy over the next 10 or 20 years from this. Just fucking idiots.
Short-term thinking. You guys, I want to transition. We have about 30 more minutes left on the stream, and I want to transition into something a little bit more exciting and uplifting. I want to talk about the Bitcoin price, but not about the price in particular, but is this time different, right? I feel like there's a deep consensus that Bitcoin's going to go to the moon. There's going to be a massive correction, and all this stuff is hinged on the halving. And, that makes sense to me. Obviously, it's happened in the past. History confirms that that's how Bitcoin works. But something different is happening now. Bitcoin is no longer an illegitimate asset, at least to many of the, biggest names in finance. It's a legitimate thing. I feel like that's something that can't be understated. And maybe, they're going to FOMO just like everyone else, and they're going to sell the top or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what are you guys seeing? Like, is something fundamentally different, or are we just going to go through another 2-year, pop and then, back to another Bitcoin bear market? Let's jump to Katie.
Who knows? I am very different between the previous bull market and now. Like, I'm so much more ready to fight the FUD. I'm prepared to onboard new coiners. I'm prepared to walk them through what they need to do, and that's very exciting. We definitely do see a lot of big money coming in, but I don't think it's because they're like, oh, 3 more years Bitcoin been around, now we can trust it. I think it's pretty much because the world is going to shit and they have to hedge against that. And that was a big catalyzer. Is it the word?
Catalyst,
yeah, catalyst, yeah, whatever. So this catalyst really worked out well for us and for Bitcoin. But pretty much, like, the blocks keep coming in. Nothing really changed in the Bitcoin network. We're just hard money, as hard as we were, and it's just getting better and better.
So is this time different, Katie, or no? You need to answer the question.
It's a very different time.
It's very different.
Katie doesn't answer. She doesn't want to. She's sovereign, goddammit.
Not on this show. All right, Colin, how about you, man? Is this time different?
No.
No?
No, I don't think so. I don't. You can't have crazy gains like this and not have a pullback. I just don't think. I don't think it'll happen. Someone that owns a fuck ton of Bitcoin, you're gonna get a bear well that's like, I'm gonna lock in profit, and I know I can actually crash the price by doing this, and then I can just buy back in at a lower price. And that's why it's okay. Like, if you have a market crash like you had in 2017 at the top, and that's okay. Like, it still settles way higher than it started. So, I mean, that's how Bitcoin works. Like, it goes up a lot, and then it goes down a little bit, and then it goes up a lot, and then it goes down a little bit, and it's just the honey badger that doesn't care. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, I think it will. I think we're probably a long way off from that. But I mean, it's anyone's guess, right?
Nothing shows going up a lot and then going down a little bit better than year-long candles. If you look at year candles, Bitcoin pretty much only goes up. Brian, is this time different?
Yeah, I think it's different. I don't think there's going to be a bear market in the way that we've just traditionally thought about what a bear market is. And I think that I also think that you're actually going to need less Bitcoin than like you think that you're going to need. Like, all the just numbers that you kind of run in your head, and when you think about like what you're going to do in the future and kind of just who you're going to be and what kind of company you're gonna have and where you're gonna work and like all this stuff. I think life for Bitcoiners is actually gonna be just really good. And I don't super. I've said this a few times. I think our best stacking days are ahead of us. Like, I think Bitcoiners, like really knowledgeable Bitcoiners, are also a really scarce asset. And so when every single company in the United States has to hire a Bitcoin expert, like BTCPay server devs are going to be going at huge salaries because they all need one. When Burger King like needs to implement a Bitcoin like strategy overnight, or they're going to be, done, and they need to hire a team for 6 months, like these little just like ninja dev teams are going to do it for every corporation that's going to like have to come up with a Bitcoin strategy. And so I think that, combining with, again, what I just tried to tell new people, like if you legitimately just don't, if you have zero Bitcoin, you're still on zero, like just get to 021. Look at how many, there's only 21 million, get to that and just continue to reassess. So I don't think there's going to be, I think Bitcoin will just continue to become the money, and like sats are the standard.
I'm just laughing at the comment Katie made in the chat saying that we're unemployable, and it's really so true. Like the amount of stuff I've said online that I just think about, like in 2021, it's like too late for me. Like this has to work.
We must be the employers, otherwise we're fucked.
Exactly.
And they're gonna have to pay us in Bitcoin, and the customers will figure it out. Like that's the whole thing. Like if you're a small taco shop, or if you're a like great consulting company, the customers will figure it out, because there is no other solution. The regular world doesn't work. The USPS can't deliver packages. The DMV can't do anything. Like the unemployment offices are all, there is no other.
Can't even get a marriage license these days in America.
No, it's all messed up. You try to call them on the phone and no one answers. Nothing is happening. Nothing's being enforced. So it's ours for the taking. And when we pay better than the no coiner companies, everyone's going to keep moving to a Bitcoin standard.
Bullish. Britt, is this time different?
I'm on.
Britt, are you going to be a multi-millionaire one day from your?
Brian, for sure. Okay, I think it's going to be this is way different. Okay, for so many reasons. Number one, the last bull run was super accelerated because of the altcoins, right? We're not really seeing it this year. So that's number one. Number two, we had the whole soft fork war, right? Like we have that coming into this bull run. So we have all these maximalists and people who are really convinced on Bitcoin, like knowing which side of the fence they're on, right? Knowing that the nodes are in control of the network. So that's two super easy low-hanging fruit reasons. Number three, I think that this bull run will be different because, just plain fact, 900 Bitcoins being mined per day is different than before. So we're starting to see the amount of Bitcoins being produced, this year, finally less than 2%. It's starting to be competitive with gold. So in terms of stock to flow ratio, in terms of the Bitcoin network principles, in terms of Bitcoin as an asset, everything, all the stars are aligning. So I think that it's completely different. In terms of whether or not we'll go back to a bear market from the bull market, I think that is I always like to make this saying that's like, buying the top is a rite of passage, right? Because there's no better hodler than someone who buys the top, right? We can all hope, but it's kind of true. And so, the longer that this goes on and the number go up meme is really impactful for people. And at this point, it's every single day. It's like Brian said, get that 0.021. That's how I've convinced so many people to buy Bitcoin is get 0.1, get 0.01, get, it's all about those. Honestly, it's just ones and zeros, which is really weird, but that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I think it's completely different from basically every angle. The layers are fully developed as far as Bitcoin layer 1. We're starting to build into layer 2. And one of the biggest reasons why I think it's going to be different is you start to see Visa partnerships. So at my LN conference in Berlin, I made the prediction that Sats back was going to be huge. And sats back is huge for people. People using Fold app, people using Wally, people using Strike. Like getting, 100 sats per day is insane. That's crazy. That's going to be so much money in the future. And people know that. People know it's free money. People like to gamble. People like to play games. And so a lot of these people are coming into the scene by just getting free Bitcoin, by just kind of like experiencing it as part of what they're already doing. You see people on Twitter like, oh, I'm excited to pay my rent, or I'm excited to pay my electric bill to get 10,000 Satoshis back. Like I sent my mom flowers because it's 18% back on Lolly. Like enjoy the flowers, right? So I think it's completely different. There are so many different ways for people to be a part of the Bitcoin network these days, which is totally different in the last bull run.
I think part of us all likes these sats back thing, but is it counter to kind of the lifestyle or the ethos? I mean, not to say that you have to subscribe to the lifestyle, the ethos, but those people they're monetizing that data, right? Like that's why they're paying you the sats. And so I do wonder about that.
Oh yeah, so as far as like the KYC thing, I know it's an interesting thing with the KYC, right? There's the whole power in numbers, right? And so it's like we didn't want to give up our KYC as individuals. But if everyone is giving up themselves to KYC, then you have this sort of leverage against companies like Visa, right? Who are kind of in the middle. Like, do I want to partner only with, Visa companies who are not using at-risk clients, right? Or do I want to allow people to participate in the Visa network, like Strike, like Fold, And so it's honestly almost like a speculative attack on Visa, not just on Bitcoin, where it's like we have the numbers. Yes, they are. But yes, KYC.
Just to chime back onto that, specifically for like the folks like Fold and Lolly, I believe they make their money on referral fees. So I don't I know that Fold in particular is very private, like Bitcoin centric when it comes to their kind of like morality and all that kind of stuff. And you can even like use the app, in a very privacy preserving way. But I do believe that something is similar for Lolly too, that they monetize via referral links, and it's awesome that companies are learning that they can make a lot of money by giving you sats back. Like that's the market saying, and trying to onboard people onto the sat standard economy. And it's really interesting just even seeing interest rates in the Bitcoin world versus the fiat world. We're seeing 8% interest on stable coins and 6% interest on your Bitcoin and stuff like that, whereas you're seeing like 0.001% interest on fiat elsewhere. So I do like to see the parallel ecosystems like kind of like operating next to each other. And I do think that the Bitcoin ecosystem is a lot more legitimate this time. So that's why I'm kind of pushing on like, is this time different? Like, should you be mindful about selling too much of your stack at what you perceive to be the top?
Dude, so something I've been doing on Twitter is whenever there's like a promoted tweet in my feed from like US Bank or whatever, I write to them and I'm like, hey, so what's your Bitcoin strategy for 2021? And do you need help like finding engineers? Because I really think you should get on that, dude. And they write back, from these sponsored tweets and are like, we'll pass this along to management. I don't think we've thought about this yet. And I just write back, I'm like, dude, like, okay, well, if you need help putting a team together, like, and you should get on this like soon. Like, and so I think people also think, I think we're going to be fine on the whole KYC and non-KYC thing. And I think we're going to be fine on the whole different apps doing different things. Like, dude, there's like when sats are the standard and people are getting paid, 1,000 sats an hour to do things or XYZ like salaries per year. There's just gonna be sats everywhere. And it's just gonna be so fungible between everything that I don't know. I don't think any of these one things are going to, every single new person in the United States having any sort of sats is positive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To answer the question directly of do I think this time will be different, I'm going to actually go Team Colin. I think this is another 100x from the bottom, 80-something% drawdown across 3 years, and rinse and repeat. And I will say, it's crazy that to see institutions throwing around billion-dollar checks and you know, or more, who knows. And it's crazy to see, you know, grandma see Bitcoin in the news every day. But that was like, that's baked into the 100x from last cycle. So it's like, you know, as weird as it is, I think that we are due for at least one more classic Bitcoin cycle before this thing goes, you know, full hyper Bitcoinization mode or whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, I'm mentally prepared for the bear market that is to come, which will make this bull market that much sweeter.
We need the time anyway. I mean, like Bitcoin is frankly not ready for the prime time yet. As much as we like to say otherwise, I don't think it's totally ready for that.
We're orders of magnitude more ready than we were in 2017, though.
Sure. But I mean, man, that 3 years was really helpful, wasn't it? And
Totally.
and I don't know, as they say, you know, what the bear market's when you build, because you don't have all this price distraction.
What do you think it needs?
Colin, what does Bitcoin need?
I don't think you could have it may be capable of being like a store of value for the world, but in terms of being, you know, the money that we all use for coffee every day across the world, I just don't know if the network could possibly handle that, even with Lightning.
I think the main reason why that wouldn't work is because no one has any money. Everyone just has debt. The main reason why that wouldn't work currently. But as far as everyone who owns Bitcoin,
well, also, like, all of our payments are centralized, which is extremely efficient.
what do you mean?
The current system is really good at payments.
Centralized payment systems are extremely efficient at high throughput.
Still can't clear faster than Bitcoin, though, right? Ultimately, it comes down
But
to
it's
that
not.
base layer.
But we already talked about it. We already talked about
that's
we already talked about it at the front of the show. We already talked about at the front of the show that like the businesses, like who's even operating right now? Like who is even operating at a profit right now? It's just like
it's not about it's just about throughput. I mean, Britt could tell us more. I mean, Britt is kind of like on the forefront of this,
the only technology you need to BTCPay Server is sick, and like I learned to deploy it, but like the only technology you need to start taking Bitcoin at your restaurant is a sticker that says Bitcoin.
Yeah, but okay, so you're talking about using Bitcoin, but you're using a bunch of custodial centralized services that accept the Bitcoin for you, right?
I'm talking about any and all of it. I'm talking about literally tomorrow, any and all of it.
Sure. If you had a bunch of Bitcoin bank equivalents, then yeah, you could do it. I mean, you could do that now. Like that's what Coinbase does. They have their own centralized ledger, and you can send Bitcoin to anyone you want at Coinbase, and there's no transaction fees, and it's instant. Totally. And that's because Coinbase is custodying all that Bitcoin, and that's fine. But then you have the same system that you have right now already, basically.
So can I jump in? Well, I would push back and I would say no. Bitcoin's permissionless. Coinbase can create their censorship, their censored, permissioned payments layer, and other people can create, permissionless protocols like Lightning. And Bitcoin gets it all. Bitcoin gets it all, and that's part of Bitcoin scaling. So it doesn't make sense to me to say, hey, Bitcoin's not going to be there because it all has to be censorship resistant, purely on-chain, purely, what's it called, bearer instrument transferring. Like, that's just not how payments aren't going to work in the future. Like, I think if Bitcoin is truly like a store of value, like the scaling technology is already here. It's been built already, and it's just a matter of how much trust you want to apply. The other stuff is getting there.
I mean, I don't know if I totally agree with all that. I mean, yes, if you have 5 or 10 Coinbases throughout the world and they're handling the bulk of the payments, then yes,
we already have that. We already have 5 or 10 Coinbases plus Visa plus MasterCard plus all these other people.
Yeah,
they're already here. You can just plug a different currency in there.
Okay, that's fine, but that's not how I want Bitcoin to work.
Yeah, but Bitcoin's also permissionless and it has the other stuff too. It gets them both. It gets it all.
I think what he's saying though is like, we're trending towards the final goal of like, every single type of way that you can use Bitcoin will be scalable to the masses. And we're just not there yet, and we need more time to get that infrastructure built and tested and more money flowing through it and for it to ramp up. because like we saw the ramp up from 2017 where we went from not clogged mempools to crazy transaction fees, and that sort of bubbling ramp up it slowed everything down, and it made it very expensive to use Bitcoin. So correct me if I'm wrong.
By the way,
Bitcoin Beach is doing it. Bitcoin Beach like this, and I'm not even trying to like be annoying. I'm serious. Like this seriously was my 2020 takeaway. Was like, guys, Bitcoin Beach is doing it. And so I don't understand why.
Brian, that's a very, very tiny. I mean, that's a tiny scale we're talking about. But my point
700 families and like 25 businesses.
Okay, that's fine, but that's not America, and it's not the world, and that's impressive and it's good. But we haven't even talked about fungibility. We haven't talked about privacy. We don't really have fungibility, true fungibility on the Bitcoin network yet. We don't have great privacy, although it's improving. So we have all these other technologies that we need to add to the base layer that aren't ready yet.
How long do you think the Visa engineers could switch over to Sats if the dollar, like if a sizable amount of United States people tomorrow said, hey, I'm not going to get out of bed for the dollar anymore? I think Visa could figure it out in under 6 months.
Of course they could figure it out, but we don't have private payments on Bitcoin yet, really. And we don't have fungibility. Like some coins are worth more than others because some coins are tainted because of Mt. Gox or Silk Road or whatever. So we have those problems that we need to fix too.
Yeah, so I think it really comes down to like this issue of whether or not everyone has to use Bitcoin for everyone to be using Bitcoin, right? Like what's our measure of success? Like, can we have everyone using Bitcoin, but also using the Visa network? Can we have it be a two-sided payment system that's going to help us transition, right? So BTCPay Server is Bitcoin only, essentially, right? No fiat to Bitcoin payment processing, right? Like it's not really like that. It's just Bitcoin. And so it's kind of a hurdle, right? Because you have on the one hand, you have these merchants like, okay, should I prioritize implementing BTCPay Server if majority of my customers don't have Bitcoin already? It's all about priority management on that return on investment. And so, are we going to get to a system where everyone is a part of the Bitcoin network without onboarding people while still using fiat? I think it's possible. I think it's going to take a lot longer. And even if
take a long time.
Exactly. And even if the dollar collapses, right? Like think about this, like, okay, the dollar's like collapsed now. And so every company all of a sudden needs to pay their employees in Bitcoin, and they need to accept from every client that they have every payment also in Bitcoin, right? So that their company is still functioning, they can still pay their employees. So that whole process just happening instantaneously, it's hard to say if the architecture is really there in terms of application development in BTC Pay. Like, yeah, it's there. There's OpenNode or there's Coinbase. There are payroll systems, but it's hard to say that we have a really well developed like batch payments and all of these types of traditional finance that you would see in companies and accounting in just Bitcoin, right? But it is very well developed in the traditional asset markets. And so in my opinion, I think that a lot of coming together of those two things is important for the transition to be not as drastic. Is that the only way? I don't think so, but I think that if we want to be accelerationists, but in terms of the easier path in terms of disrupting people's lives, it's good to combine the two.
Yeah, no, and like I'm not doubting that there's a future for custodial solutions in the future of Bitcoin, and it can help you kind of scale in the meantime. But there are these custodial attack vectors too that you have to worry about from state actors. Like if Coinbase owns 70% of the world's Bitcoin, which they don't, but if they did, then all it takes is some act of Congress to say, okay, give us all your Bitcoin and we're just going to crash the price and we're going to end your little party. I mean, these are also attack surfaces that we have to think about. And I just wanted to say that, like, it's not obvious to me that we can have a Bitcoin standard today. And I think we need more time. And I think if you asked a lot of core developers, they'd probably agree with me. And they know way more than I do.
Core developers are the most cynical.
Completely.
Exactly.
Dude, so completely agree with phased in and whatever, and that being better. What I'm trying to say is that I believe you have to go to battle with the warriors that you have. And if the battle comes for us, the network's ready. Like if billions and billions of people needed freedom tomorrow, the network's ready. And because it would figure it out. And small businesses figure it out, and developers figure it out, and all the documentation is good, and they'll figure it out, and people will find their own hacks and their own workarounds, and there will be so many different things that we'll never seen before. Because think about all these small businesses that had to like randomly print out mask signs, put up plastic, put up all that, like they all did that all overnight. And now from every little town, from Boulder to freaking Orange County to Florida to I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, like all these little businesses did the same thing overnight and went out and found the resources and put up tents and bought igloos and did all. So it's like, and because what? Because the political climate demanded that they change. And so it's like and I don't even think that's from like I'm not even trying to say from a negative, like, oh, the dollar collapses. I'm saying like if Bitcoin truly grabs the zeitgeist and people are just like, yeah, this is cool. This is the thing now. And there could just be a bang. And I think it is. I think the whole thing, the concept of what is Bitcoin is big enough that it could absorb all that.
Yeah. And I hope you're right. I don't want us to lull into this complacency that, we'll figure it out and it's ready. And I prefer it to be ready and me be wrong and be over prepared than to be wrong about it being ready. And then, instead of me helping my boomer parents figure out Bitcoin and maybe even control it for them, they just rely on Coinbase. Like, we need to take more responsibility as knowledgeable, some of us technical people or relatively technical people, to help people who probably are just not, when I think about my dad, there is no fucking hope he is going to run his own node. Not happening. He's just not. He can barely send an email. So it's on us. It's contingent on us to help these people do this so that they don't have to rely, if we can prevent it from relying on custodial services.
Real quick, I would just like to say that I sleep easy at night knowing that if Bitcoin fails, we still have Ripple the standard. So I know you guys all agree with that.
Thank God.
I think with that, it's a good time to wrap this one up. You guys, this conversation, it really went everywhere, right? But it was everything I wanted. We covered 2020. We covered the price. We covered what Bitcoin adoption goes into, looks like. And we even kind of got a little heated there at the end. So this was a fantastic stream. The only thing that went wrong is this damn green screen is just not working. So
that's the best part. You talking about never replace it.
It's a lot of work for me because I just keep like moving my hands around trying to like reappear.
Yeah, so he got his workout in today.
Yeah, but y'all, thank you so much for joining us. To all the viewers across all the platforms, thank you so much for watching. It's time for last word. I want to kick off the last word with Brian. Brian, what's your last word to the audience, and where can people learn more about you and find you?
Yeah, my name is Brian, on Twitter, Brain Harrington. If you're within driving distance of either Orange County, California, Las Vegas, Nevada, or Phoenix, Arizona, we kind of have a great group of meetups that are all coordinated together. I was in Vegas just yesterday, and we can get you plugged in to that, Brain Harrington on Twitter. And look, Bitcoin is a big deal, so continue to lean into it in as many single aspects of your life as you can.
Awesome. Let's go to Katie. What's your last word?
I'm Katie the Russian on Twitter, and my only word would be, you got it. You can learn whatever the fuck you want. Like, I just met a lot of people who are like, I will never figure out what Bitcoin is. I just have to take your word. No, you can learn. You can do everything. You can learn anything in the world. You are capable, so go ahead and do that.
That's amazing. You should be Katie the Uplifter. Let's go to Colin, and then Britt, close it out for us.
You don't worry about following me specifically on Twitter, but you can follow at Bill Fodl Wallet. You can find our website at privacypros.io, where we sell the Bill Fodl and tons of hardware wallets and Faraday bags and that kind of thing. And we have like some great guides and reviews and that kind of thing that we do there. You can also listen to my podcast, Unhash Podcast, at unhashpodcast.com, where I host that with my brother and Ruben Thompson, who's the head maintainer of the Bitcoin mailing list, and Mario Gibney, who does support over at Blockstream. And it's just a Bitcoin news and deep dive technical discussion on the latest in Bitcoin. And we also laugh at lots of shitcoins as they come up. And we also are super irreverent and crude, and like, it's definitely not something you want to listen to with your kids. So check that out. And hopefully we'll see you at Bitcoin 2021. We'll be at a booth there, so please come say hi. And to the rest of the panel, I didn't mean to dominate. Nothing but respect for all of you, and Brian and Christian. So I know it got heated, but it's for the better of Bitcoin. So we all love Bitcoin, so we can align under that banner.
Colin, you take that apology back. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for the great conversation. Britt, let's close it out.
Cool. I'm Britt Kelly on Twitter. So it's Britt with 5 T's and then Kelly. My closing statement is, if you've been lurking in Bitcoin Twitter or any Bitcoin community and you wanted to join a community, consider joining the BTCPay community, especially if you want to be a developer or you want to learn new technical skills in this new world. Come into our Mattermost chat, chat.btcpayserver.org, and message me and let me know that you want to learn new skills, and we can help you do that. If you're a new person in the Bitcoin world, definitely consider joining a community besides Bitcoin Twitter. And if you are a hardcore Bitcoiner, I have one thing to say. There's a saying that everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. But if you're hardcore, everybody gets Bitcoin at the security and privacy that they deserve. So keep that in mind. And yeah, thanks for having me on the live stream.
Very, very good last word, Britt. Thank you so much to all of the panelists for hopping on. This was a great show and an excellent show to kick off the year. To 2021, may it be a fantastic year for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Magazine, and each and every one of you, to the panelists and to everyone who is watching on the stream. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.